"Are you deaf, old man?" I said, "Move it." The sharp, cocky voice of youth sliced through the quiet hum of the naval amphibious base gym. Vernon, his back still turned to the speaker, kept sweeping with steady, deliberate strokes. The soft scrape of the broom against the concrete was his only answer. He followed the edge of the wrestling mats, once a place of honor and struggle, now just another patch of floor to keep clean. The young Navy SEAL, sweat gleaming on his skin and impatience radiating from his stance, stepped forward until his shadow fell across Vernon. "Hey!" he snapped. "I'm talking to you! We need this space. Go empty a trash can somewhere else." Vernon paused mid-sweep and straightened slowly, each vertebra popping like the ticking of a clock that had seen too many years. When he finally turned around, his face was a map of 70 hard-lived years, lined, weathered, and calm. His pale blue eyes met the young man's without a word. That silent defiance, so steady, so unbothered, ignited something in the Navy SEAL standing before him. The young operator, so accustomed to being the most dominant man in any room, suddenly felt a rare, stinging sensation, being dismissed. "What's your problem, old man?" "Didn't you hear me?" he barked, voice rising. Nearby, another SEAL drying off with a towel chuckled, sensing the entertainment. The gym grew quieter. Vernon stood still, both hands resting lightly on the worn wooden handle of his broom. The air between the two men tightened, and invisible cord stretched between quiet dignity and coiled. Aggression. The young SEAL. Petty. Officer Slate stepped closer until he was nearly chest to chest with the janitor. The gym, usually alive with clanging weights and grunts of effort, seemed to hold its breath. Slate was built like a block of muscle and confidence, a product of years of elite training. Vernon, lean and wiry, looked fragile in comparison. His loose uniform, faintly scented with cleaning supplies and old coffee. "Listen, Pops," Slate said, lowering his voice to a slow, taunting growl. "This isn't a nursing home. This is a place for warriors. We need the mat. So why don't you grab your broom and shuffle off?" Vernon didn't flinch. He blinked once, slowly. Then, in a gravelly but steady voice, he replied, "The floor needs to be swept. Keeps the dust down. Better for breathing when you're working hard." That simple, reasonable statement landed like a slap. It was so plain, so unmilitary, it infuriated Slate. "You think I care about dust?" he sneered. "I've been through conditions that would make you cry yourself to sleep." "Now move, before I make you!" He shoved the broom's handle sharply. It clattered across the floor. Vernon looked down at it, then back up at Slate. There was no anger in his eyes, only deep disappointment. The kind that comes from having seen too many men confuse strength with cruelty. The other SEALs had stopped what they were doing. Some smirked, others watched in silence. To them, this was a bit of harmless sport, a reminder of the pecking order, warrior over worker, young over old. Vernon stooped to pick up his broom, his movement deliberate. As he did, the collar of his shirt shifted, revealing a patch of skin at the back of his neck. Faded and blurred by time, a tattoo peeked through, its shape almost lost to the years, yet unmistakable to anyone who recognized it. Slate didn't. He was too wrapped up in his own display of dominance. Seeing Vernon bend down, he smirked. "That's better," he said. "Now you're learning your place." But someone else did notice. Leaning against a weight rack across the gym was Master Chief Petty Officer Thorne, a veteran in his late 40s, built from decades of discipline and battlefield experience. He had seen plenty of brash young SEALs like Slate, and he rarely stepped in when egos clashed. Friction, after all, forged steel. But this was different. Thorne's gaze fixed on the tattoo at the back of Vernon's neck. His eyes narrowed. He pushed himself off the rack, his own workout forgotten. He knew that mark. He'd only seen it in old photographs, grainy black and white shots from another era, long before the SEALs existed. It was a trident, entwined with a coiled sea serpent, the insignia of the underwater demolition. Teams, the original frogmen of World War II and Korea, the ancestors of the modern SEALs. But that particular design, the serpent's tail coiling, the base of the trident meant something rarer still. It signified a special detachment spoken of only in whispers, a unit whose missions had never been officially recorded. Oblivious, Slate continued his mockery. "Maybe we should get you a new uniform, Pops," he said loudly, grinning at his buddies. "Something with a bib in case you drool." Laughter rippled through the gym. Vernon stood upright again, broom in hand. His gaze didn't land on Slate this time. It passed over him and met Thorne's steady eyes. For a brief moment, something flickered in Vernon's expression. Recognition and a weary kind of resignation. He hadn't wanted this. He just wanted quiet. 3 years of sweeping floors in peace, unnoticed. That was enough for him. Thorne walked toward them slowly, each step deliberate. The laughter faded. The young SEALs sensed the shift in energy. "Is there a problem here, Petty Officer Slate?" Thorne's voice was calm, but it carried the unmistakable weight of command. Slate straightened. "No, Master Chief, just telling the janitor to clear the area." Thorne's eyes didn't move from Vernon. "His name is Mr. Ford," he said evenly, the title carrying quiet emphasis. Then Thorne's gaze dropped, just slightly, to the tattoo. The pieces were falling into place. That faded ink wasn't just an old design. It was a living fragment of history. Vernon could almost feel the past pressing in around him. The gym lights blurred into a hazy glow, and suddenly he was back under the flicker of a kerosene lamp, skin sticky with salt air. He could hear the surf, smell the oil and gunpowder. A young sailor once sat in a tent while a grizzled chief inked that serpent and trident into his neck, a mark of loyalty, danger, and brotherhood. Those men had gone on missions that never made the papers. They'd swum into enemy harbors, strapped with explosives, clearing paths for invasions. Their deeds unrecorded, their bravery unsung. The tattoo was their only badge of honor. To the unknowing, it was just an old mark. But to Thorne, it was sacred. He couldn't allow this to continue. "Not here, not like this." "Hit the showers," Thorne ordered sharply. "All of you." The SEALs hesitated, confused, but his tone allowed no argument. One by one they dispersed. Slate lingered for a heartbeat, then left, pride wounded but silent. When the room finally emptied, Thorne turned to Vernon. His voice softened, heavy with respect. "Mr. Ford, I apologize for my men?" Vernon simply nodded. His eyes were distant, fixed on something far beyond the gym walls. Thorne exhaled slowly. He understood now. This wasn't just an old man with a broom. This was living history. Pulling out his phone, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he needed. Commander Jacobs, the base CO. He turned slightly away, lowering his voice as he spoke into the phone. "Sir, this is Master Chief Thorne. I'm at the SEAL gym. You need to come down here immediately." A pause. "No, sir, nothing urgent in that sense. But, do you know who the janitor is? Vernon Ford." Another silence. "Well, sir," Thorne said quietly, eyes drifting back to the old man. "He's got a tattoo on his neck, a coiled serpent around a trident. It's the NCDU insignia, the old frogmen. But I think it's more than that. I think he might be one of the Mako unit." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, almost reverent. The Mako unit wasn't just a name. It was legend, a ghost story whispered to new recruits about a team of frogmen from the Korean War era, men who carried out missions so dangerous and secret they were wiped from the official record. Finding one alive, quietly sweeping a gym floor, it was beyond belief. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Commander Jacobs finally said, his voice stripped of all formality. "Don't let him leave." Thorne ended the call and turned back to Vernon, who had already resumed sweeping as though the entire confrontation had never happened. The Master Chief just stood there, silent now, a sentry to living history, waiting for the past to walk through those gym doors. In his office, Commander Jacobs sat staring at his phone, Thorne's words echoing in his head. Mako unit. He hadn't heard that designation spoken aloud in years. It didn't appear in any current files, nor in official archives. It was a phantom, buried deep in the Navy's forgotten past. Without hesitation, Jacobs swiveled to his desk and logged into the secure naval archives. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he entered the name Vernon Ford. The first results were unremarkable: standard service record, active from 1950 to 1954, honorable discharge, frogmen training, nothing special. But Jacobs knew better. The most important stories were always buried behind black ink and clearance codes. He triggered a command-level override. One restricted file appeared, redacted almost completely, but one line was still visible. Operation MCO, Sole Survivor. See Addendum File X-Ray 7. Jacob's heart froze. Only admirals had access to X-Ray 7 classifications. That could mean only one thing. The old janitor in his SEAL gym was the lone survivor of a mission that officially didn't exist. He grabbed his cover and bolted for the door, mind racing. Suddenly, every detail about Vernon's calm composure made sense. The quiet authority, the unshakable steadiness, the way he'd faced down Slate without a hint of fear. Back in the gym, Slate, still smarting from the humiliation earlier, decided he wasn't done proving himself. He had showered and changed, but the image of the Master Chief standing protectively near the janitor gnawed at him. He needed to reclaim control. Feigning nonchalance, he strode back onto the gym floor under the pretense of retrieving something from his locker. Vernon was still sweeping, Thorne still nearby, watchful. Slate smirked. "Hey, Pops," he said, voice dripping with mock concern. "You should be careful. All this dust, it's not good for someone your age. Wouldn't want you taking a fall." He turned to Thorne, smirking. "Maybe it's time we get him into a home." "I can make the call, get him evaluated." The words were cruel, designed to wound. Thorne's jaw flexed, and he took a step forward. But Vernon raised a hand, a quiet, commanding gesture that froze him in place. The old janitor met Slate's gaze, and for the first time, there was something other than weariness in his eyes: pity. Before Slate could continue, the gym doors burst open. The sound cracked through the space like a gunshot. Commander Jacobs stormed in, flanked by 2 Marine guards in full-dress uniform. Behind them, his black staff car still idled outside, lights flashing. The entire gym fell silent, the remaining SEALs frozen mid-motion. This was no routine visit. Jacobs walked straight toward Vernon, eyes locked on him, ignoring Slate entirely. He passed Thorne without a word. Every step was measured, deliberate. When he stopped in front of Vernon Ford, the Marines took their positions at the entrance, and the silence deepened until it felt physical. Jacobs studied Vernon's face, then the faded tattoo on his neck. Awe and disbelief flickered across his features. He knew exactly who stood before him. Then, to the shock of everyone present, Commander Jacobs snapped to attention and rendered a crisp, formal salute, the kind reserved for war heroes and dignitaries. The Marines followed suit, their gloved hands rising in unison. "Mr. Ford," Jacobs said, voice clear and resonant, "I am Commander Jacobs. I want to personally and professionally apologize for the disrespect you've endured in this facility." He held the salute, eyes unwavering. Slate stood motionless, his face pale, his arrogance shattered. Thorne, off to the side, watched in silence, his expression a mixture of pride and deep respect. Lowering his hand, Jacobs turned toward the assembled men. "For those unaware," he began, his voice echoing across the gym, "this is Vernon Ford. Before he was a janitor here, he served as a frogman, a member of the Navy's original underwater demolition teams during the Korean War." He paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. He was part of a 3-man team under a clandestine program known as Operation Mako. Their mission, still classified, was to infiltrate Wonsan Harbor in North Korea ahead of the main invasion force and destroy submarine nets and minefields using handmade explosives. They did it with no breathing apparatus, in near-freezing water under cover of darkness. Jacobs's voice dropped to a reverent hush. Vernon Ford swam 2 hours back to safety alone. He was the only survivor. For that, he was secretly awarded the Navy Cross, an award that never appeared in public record. The room was deathly still. The SEALs who had been watching now stood taller, shame and reverence washing over their faces. The broom in Vernon's hand suddenly seemed like a scepter, a symbol of quiet, earned honor. Jacobs turned to Slate, his tone turning icy. "You," he said quietly, are a disgrace to that uniform. You confuse arrogance for strength and mistake age for weakness. This man you mocked has more valor in one finger than you'll have in your lifetime. He straightened. Master Chief Thorne, escort this petty officer to my office. He's on report. He will issue a written apology to Mr. Ford. And starting Monday, every operator on this base, rookie or veteran, will attend mandatory history training on the UDT legacy that men like Mr. Ford built. Then he faced Vernon again, voice softening. Mr. Ford, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and I'm sorry. Vernon finally spoke, his voice rough but calm, carrying easily through the gym. Son, he said, looking not at the commander but at Slate. Respect isn't in the uniform you wear, it's in how you wear it. The strongest man isn't the one who can lift the most weight, it's the one who can lift others up. He looked down at the broom in his hand. There's no shame in any job, so long as it's done with dignity. The faded tattoo on his neck seemed to glow faintly under the harsh gym lights, a symbol of promises made in blood and salt water, of ghosts who never came home. That night long ago came back to him, the tent, the lamp's flicker, the mission briefing that offered no return. Their chief had said, "The Navy won't give you a medal for this. They won't even admit you were here. But we'll know. We'll remember." Then he'd inked that serpent and trident on their necks, a private medal of valor no one could strip away. The fallout was swift. Slate was officially reprimanded and assigned a month of remedial duties, working side by side with the janitorial crew. The history course was instituted immediately, with a surprise guest speaker, Vernon Ford himself. He didn't say much that day, just a few stories, not of glory, but of brotherhood, sacrifice, and humility. His words carried more weight than any textbook. Weeks later, Slate approached Vernon quietly at the end of a shift. "Mr. Ford," he said, voice low. I wanted to apologize in person." "There's no excuse for what I did." Vernon looked at him, saw the sincerity in his eyes, and gave a small nod. "We all make mistakes, son," he said gently. "Be a better man tomorrow than you were today." He patted Slate's shoulder and walked away, leaving behind not just a clean gym, but a lesson in true strength, humility, and the kind of valor that never fades. If Vernon's story moved you, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Veterans Valor, where we honor the quiet heroes who walk among us every day.